Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 55 based on novel. So let's start. Incomparably berserk Yuan power undulations wildly unfurled across the area. A thick bloody scent mixed with killing intent permeated the sky. At this moment, it appeared as though the sky had been dyed dark red. The spacious rocky terrain was currently in complete chaos. Two torrents clashed together. No unnecessary words were spoken. Yuan power circulated and many martial arts were unleashed. Finally, it was ferociously directed by the many red-eyed individuals at the enemy in front of them. Such a chaotic battle could only be described by one word: desperate. Boom! A densely packed crimson light rose from the battlefield. Ying Huan Huan sat down amidst this cluster of light. Her crimson heavenly phoenix zither was placed over her knees. A pair of delicate and perfect jade-like hands glittered with a faint fluorescence as they landed on the zither. Currently, there were two individuals with cold smiles standing in front of Ying Huan Huan. They were both Yuan Gate Spirit Generals, and had already stepped into the 9 Yuan Nirvana stage. In the short couple of minutes earlier, the both of them had severely injured over a dozen Dao sect disciples. Finish her off. These two Yuan Gate Spirit Generals locked onto Ying Huan Huan, who was in their way. They exchanged glances, before they immediately rushed out simultaneously in an extremely well-coordinated manner. Ying Huan Huan's usually pretty and lively face was filled with frost as she watched these two charge at her with ferocious expressions. Her large eyes stared at the two Yuan Gate Spirit Generals, while an icy blue color surged deep within her eyes. Boom! Delicate fingers strummed the zither strings. Soon after, they suddenly flicked as a melodious zither music sounded out. Two extremely wild and violent crimson sonic waves hurtled out in an instant. They possessed exceptionally shocking speeds as they ferociously slammed onto the two figures that were charging over. Bang! The sonic waves exploded on the duo's bodies. An unbridled and aggressive force directly jolted back the duo until they withdrew miserably. Their eyes were already packed with a solemn expression when they landed on the ground again. The current Ying Huan Huan had also made a breakthrough to the 9 Yuan Nirvana stage a couple of days ago. With the help of the Heavenly Phoenix Zither in her possession, she was already able to stop two Yuan Gate Spirit Generals by herself. The both of you will now pay for harming my Dao sect disciples. A cold aura covered Ying Huan Huan's face. Her eyes were icy cold as she observed those two who had some surprise on their faces. Soon after, those delicate hands suddenly fell, and a monstrous crimson light that mixed with a clear sonic wave resounded. Sharp sonic wave attacks swept towards the two Yuan Gate Spirit Generals from all directions. The Yuan Gate still has 4 Spirit Generals. Qing Yi glanced at Ying Huan Huan's battleground in the distance. Soon after, his eyes grimly looked towards 4 other directions. The Yuan Gate disciples at those places possessed an extremely fierce momentum while being led by the other 4 Spirit Generals. I will deal with one of them. The great senior brother of the Flood Hall, Mu Li, stated in a deep voice. He was powerful enough to fight with a 9 Yuan Nirvana stage expert. Although he might not be able to defeat the other party, stopping one should not be a problem. I can also only deal with one of them. Qing Yi clenched his teeth. He had similarly successfully endured a Nirvana tribulation during this period of time, and had stepped into the 9 Yuan Nirvana stage. This strength, however, was only equal to 1 Spirit General. After all, he did not have a pure Yuan treasure aiding him. What should we do about the other two? Mu Li frowned. It was extremely difficult for an ordinary disciple to deal with a 9 Yuan Nirvana stage practitioner. If they were left to their devices, it would be a tremendous blow towards the morale of the disciples. Qing Yi knitted his brows tightly, feeling helpless. The Yuan Gate was stronger than them. All they could do was to try their best in such a situation. Leave the last two to me. A clear voice suddenly sounded from the side while Qing Yi was feeling helpless. After which, Qing Yi saw a slim figure in dark black dress carrying an oversized giant black sickle as she walked out. To his surprise, it was Qing Tan. The Qing Yi duo were stunned as they gazed at Qing Tan. I will deal with those two. Qing Tan looked towards the two Yuan Gate spirit generals. She gripped the black sickle in her hands and repeated herself. Will you be able to manage? Qing Yi could not help but ask. He was a little worried that Qing Tan was trying to show off. Should an accident happen? Qing Tan glanced at him but did not say anything in response. Soon after, however, Qing Yi felt an extremely dark and fiendish black light suddenly surge out from Qing Tan's body. The air where the black light spread seemed to even show traces of solidifying. What a dark and terrible Yuan power! Qing Yi and Mu Li were shocked as they watched Qing Tan, who was wrapped in black light. The latter's Yuan power was a little different from their own. Their Yuan power was a blending of yin and yang, however, Qing Tan's Yuan power was an extremely pure yin. I'm heading out. Qing Tan did not have any intentions of tarrying. After uttering those words, her lovely figure turned into a flash of black light as it rushed out. Finally, her sickle danced and two unusually dark and chilling black lights swept towards those two Yuan Gate spirit generals. Humph, where has this little girl come from? You are courting death. The two spirit generals immediately laughed in anger when they saw that Qing Tan actually dared to attack them. They moved and pounced out like a tiger and leopard. Ferocious and unrestrained palm winds enveloped Qing Tan. Qing Tan did not pull back in the face of their attacks. A strange cold glint flickered on the black sickle in her hands, and it suddenly cleaved forward in the next moment. The sickle struck. It was possible to see the space in front of it being ripped apart as cracks formed. In a flash, the sharp blade appeared above a spirit general's head. It looked as though Qing Tan's attack had penetrated through space. Clang! A sword glow shot out from the side and blocked the descending blade. Only then did the spirit general withdraw in panic. However, a piece of meat at the top of his head had already been cleaved off. Immediately, fresh blood began flowing down. Be careful. The sickle in her hands is a little strange. The other spirit general's eyes hardened upon seeing this and cried out in a low voice. Qing Tan glanced at the two shocked faces. Without further ado, the black sickle in her hands was swung once again. Sharp wind swept out anew, wrapping the duo within it. Those two spirit generals also did not dare to be the slightest bit slow as they hurriedly focused and fought with their full strength. We should also start. Qing Yi and Mu Li sighed in relief when they saw that Qing Tan was actually able to stop two spirit generals. They exchanged glances before their bodies flew out and rushed into the battlefield together. Finally, they blocked the last two Yuan Gate spirit generals. Bang bang! Cries of battle surged from the rocky terrain into the sky. At a glance, everyone was red-eyed and bloodthirsty. Occasionally, someone would spit out blood as he was sent flying backwards. They would land outside the battlefield, and no one could tell whether they lived or died. Both parties did not show any mercy when they fought. This was not some sparring competition. Instead, it was a genuine fight between enemies. A large group of 9 Heaven Supreme Purity Palace disciples stood on a mountain some distance from the rocky area. At this moment, there was a slight change in their expression as they watched the life and death battles before them. Scarlet light continued to be reflected in their eyes. They are all engaging in all-out bloody battles. The enmity between Dao sect and Yuan Gate is indeed difficult to mediate, a person within the crowd sighed. The Dao sect and Yuan Gate disciples were like exceptionally unreasonable enemies when they met during the great sect competitions. When they fought, it was as though they possessed an irreconcilable vengeance with the other party. The overall strength of the Yuan Gate disciples is after all a little stronger. It is a little unwise for Dao sect to fight head-on against them in this manner. Wu Kun watched the blood-red battlefield before him. His eyes contained a rather grave expression as he spoke. That's right. Moreover, I wonder where the Dao sect's Lin Dong has run off to. Could it be that he is really afraid of Yuan Cang and doesn't dare to show himself? A person interrupted. Big brother Lin Dong isn't afraid of Yuan Cang. A person at the side immediately issued a rebuttal the moment the voice sounded. That person tilted his head to take a look, only to see that it was Suruo, who had some fury on her pretty face. Immediately, he laughed dryly and did not dare to speak any further. Suruo's eyes turned towards the battleground below. The fight there was extremely tragic. Deaths and injuries had gradually appeared amongst the Dao sect disciples. The miserable screams that rang out one after another clearly told Suruo that this was no longer some practice sparring. Instead, it was a true battlefield. The most critical battle is still the one between Chen Gui and Yuan Cang. Wu Kun lifted his head and looked towards the sky above. Monstrous Yuan power surged wildly from that spot as two ghost-like figures crossed each other at lightning speed. A low thunder-like sound could be heard each time they collided. Senior brother Wu Kun, who has a higher chance of victory? A disciple asked. Wu Kun hesitated a little when he heard this. Only then did he reply, Qingzhu had said that Yuan Cang is an extremely dangerous person. Even she would have difficulty defeating him. Chen Gui might also possess quite a strong reputation, but perhaps Yuan Cang will have a higher chance of victory. Suruo by the side felt her heart tighten slightly when she heard this. She clenched her fist tightly and turned her head. Those eyes of hers were a little anxious as she watched the horizon. She knew that once Chen Gui was defeated at Yuan Cang's hands, the Dao sect would suffer a complete defeat. Big brother Lin Dong, you need to hurry back. Two rays of light rushed past the sky with extreme speed far from the location where the big battle had erupted. The low sonic boom that was created from their high speed attracted many gazes from below. Lin Dong's expression was taunt. He lifted his head and peered into the distance. There seemed to be a bloody scent spreading from that spot. Senior sister Xiao Xiao, all of you must wait for me. Lin Dong clenched his fist tightly. The green dragon wings on his back flapped as his speed once again soared to its limit. Monstrous Yuan power surged in the distant sky. Two light figures tore through the sky while accompanied by an extremely fierce and aggressive undulation. Finally, they collided with a loud bang before countless onlooking eyes that were filled with emotion. Boom! A sudden clap of thunder rumbled the moment they collided. Wave after wave of Yuan power ripples, which were visible to the naked eyes, spread apart. Two figures shot backwards, their feet stepping on the air, before they finally stabilized themselves. Yuan Cang waved his sleeve, completely eliminating the force within his body. His eyes looked at Chen Gui in the distance as he faintly smiled. It has been a long time since we have exchanged blows, but you have indeed improved quite a bit. Likewise. Chen Gui clenched his hand. Grayish-black Yuan power shuttled and gathered on his palm. He glanced indifferently at Yuan Cang before speaking in an indifferent voice. It seems that the Dao sect disciples are no match for our Yuan Gate. Yuan Cang smilingly watched the area below. It was obvious that Yuan Gate had obtained the upper hand in the chaotic battle between the two parties. Chen Gui frowned slightly. He looked to where Qing Tan was located. Worry involuntarily flashed across his eyes when he saw that the latter was actually facing two 9 Yuan Nirvana stage experts on her own. Although he was clearly aware of some techniques of this junior of his, he would likely be severely scolded by their master if anything were to happen to her here. Looks like I'll have to defeat you first. Chen Gui's eyes flickered as he slowly said. The Yuan Gate's morale would definitely take a huge hit if he defeated Yuan Cang. Are you certain that you can do it? A playful smile surfaced on Yuan Cang's lips as he laughed. Chen Gui did not speak. He merely slowly rolled up his sleeve. Soon after, strange black threads seeped out from under his skin. In a split second, they caused both of his arms to become pitch black as ink. His sharp fingernails were suffused with a black light, while vaguely emitting a strange chill. Yuan Cang's eyes narrowed as he watched this from afar. The cold look in his eyes became even colder. Bang! Pang Tong's expression was ferocious. His Yuan power-covered fist viciously smashed into the chest of a Yuan Gate disciple. The fierce and violent strength directly caused the latter's chest to sink in. That Yuan Gate disciple spat out a mouthful of fresh blood as he feebly collapsed. Senior brother Pang, be careful. A cry suddenly sounded behind him when Pang Tong dealt the fatal blow to the Yuan Gate disciple in front of him with a punch. Quickly after, his heart shivered as his body suddenly shifted to the left. A sharp sword glow rushed past and directly traced across Pang Tong's arm, forming a deep bloody wound that made his bone visible. Fresh blood immediately gushed out. When the sword glow failed to strike Pang Tong's fatal spot, that Yuan Gate disciple immediately strided forward with a dark look on his face. The sword in his hand was like a viper that intended to strike at Pang Tong's throat. A figure strided forward from behind Pang Tong just as the sword glow was about to shoot out. A huge blade was swung like a windmill and directly blocked the sword glow of that Yuan Gate disciple. Soon after, the blade jolted and that Yuan Gate disciple ended up vomiting blood as he retreated. "Senior brother Pang, you alright?" Jiang Hao stood back to back with Pang Tong. He wiped off the blood on his face as he asked. "I'm fine, thanks." Pang Tong shook his head. He circulated his Yuan power and halted the blood gushing from his arm. His eyes swept around, and his expression sank. The difference in the strength of both parties had begun to show as the bloody battle dragged on. Some of the Dao sect disciples were already beginning to show signs of having Yuan power exhaustion. The situation is not good. Jiang Hao's expression was grim as he commented in a deep voice. Even the more outstanding disciples like them were already injured at this moment. It was likely that the injuries of the other disciples were even more severe. Pang Tong nodded. Yet, both parties had already fought to the point of losing control and there was no way to stop. If Lin Dong still doesn't hurry up and return, it is likely that we will really be unable to endure any longer. Senior sister Xiao Xiao and senior brother Wang Yang can barely stop Ling Zhen and Lei Qian. Jiang Hao said. "Stop uttering such nonsense. Junior brother Lin Dong will reach in time." Pang Tong frowned and chided. He was just about to attack again, when his expression suddenly changed. He abruptly lifted his head, and he looked at the highest spot in the sky. An enormous fluctuation was emitted from that spot. That ripple was extremely majestic. Hence, it had immediately attracted countless gazes. After which, all of them saw that Chen Gui's black arms were emitting rays of black light amidst the grayish-black Yuan power in the sky. What a powerful ripple! Chen Gui is planning to deliver a deadly blow. Looks like he intends to quickly defeat his opponent. However, Yuan Cang is no pushover. All eyes were gathered at the highest spot in the sky. They knew that the battle there would determine the victor of this great battle between both parties. Regardless of whether it was Chen Gui or Yuan Cang who was defeated, it would result in a great blow towards the morale of their side. Bang bang! Monstrous black light gathered behind Chen Gui. In the next instant, his eyes abruptly became sharp as he stepped forward while his hand was curled into a claw. Subsequently, it grabbed at Yuan Cang across the distant space. Great darkness, heavenly ghost claw. A deep voice emerged from Chen Gui's mouth at this moment. Soon after, countless piercing ghost-like screeches rang out in the sky. Monstrous grayish-black light agglomerated and actually turned into 100 feet large darkness ghost claw. A sinister wind blew from this ghost claw. Bang! The darkness ghost claw directly penetrated through the empty space. It contained a frighteningly dark and formidable fluctuation as it viciously clawed at Yuan Cang. "Ha ha, is this the martial art that you, Chen Gui, are most proud of? Just as well, today I shall completely break this martial art of yours in front of everyone." Yuan Cang watched the arriving ghost claw that was accompanied by a terrifying fluctuation. He did not dodge, but instead laughed heartily. At the same time, monstrous Yuan power whistled like a giant wave behind him. Yuan God Codex, Heavenly Yuan Hand. Yuan Cang extended his hand and suddenly clenched it as it fell while laughing loudly. Rumble. An unusually vast and mighty Yuan power whistled out from behind him. It turned into a titanic Yuan power hand that was hundreds of feet large before countless stunned eyes. A frightening force that could shake the world seemed to be gathered on that titanic hand. Bang! The moment the titanic Yuan power hand, which blotted out the sun, was formed, it viciously slapped out. In the next instant, it violently collided with the darkness ghost claw in front of numerous eyes. Bang bang bang! A thunderous noise was frantically echoed at the moment of impact. The ghost claw and titanic hand continued to emit berserk undulations in the sky in an attempt to destroy the other party. At this moment, however, it was clear that the strength of both parties was similar. Hence, regardless of how wild and violent the fluctuation was, neither of the attacks could gain an obvious advantage. A draw her, everyone involuntarily muttered as they watched the stalemate in the sky. In the sky, Yuan Cang seemed to have heard the numerous mutters. Immediately, a sneer flashed in his eyes. The strange smile on his lips grew increasingly wider. "Chen Gui, I have said that you will regret it." Yuan Cang looked at Chen Gui from afar. He laughed softly and both of his hands rapidly formed an unusual set of seals. Following the transformation of his hand seals, a mysterious symbol faintly appeared on Yuan Cang's forehead. Spirit emblem? Chen Gui immediately noticed the symbol on Yuan Cang's forehead. Immediately, his pupils suddenly shrunk as a shaken expression surfaced on his face. He never imagined that this Yuan Cang had actually obtained a spirit emblem. "Have you discovered it?" Yuan Cang gazed at the drastic change in Chen Gui's expression. The strange smile of his now had an additional ferocity within it. Immediately, the symbol on his forehead suddenly flickered, while Yuan Cang's aura abruptly soared the moment it did so. Bang bang! As Yuan Cang's aura soared, the titanic Yuan power hand immediately became stronger. Its size swelled and it tightly grabbed the darkness ghost claw. Frightening strength was unleashed, and cracks immediately surfaced on the darkness ghost claw. Shatter! Yuan Cang suddenly cried out coldly. Soon after, everyone could hear a clear sound ring in the air. The darkness ghost claw was forcibly crushed. Chen Gui emitted a muffled moan from his throat when the darkness ghost claw broke. A pale look flashed across his face. "I have given you a choice to live, but you refuse to take it. Do not blame me for being merciless." Ferociousness flashed across Yuan Cang's eyes after he gained the upper hand in the exchange. He took a step forward and the titanic Yuan power hand directly tore through space and viciously swatted at Chen Gui. Its shadow blocked all of Chen Gui's retreat paths in an instant. After which, the titanic hand mercilessly smashed into his body in front of countless stunned eyes. Bang! A low and deep sound caused everyone's heart to tremble violently. A black light shot down from the sky, and in the end, it crashed into the ground. The terrifying force directly caused an enormous deep pit to be formed on the ground. Chen Gui's expression was deathly pale as he lay within the pit. His mask had cracked apart, revealing his pale face. Blood also flowed from his body. Clearly, his injuries were not light. Yuan Cang's face was sinisterly cold as he watched Chen Gui being injured by his strike. With a sinister laugh, a black metal sword appeared as he clenched his hand. Subsequently, a sharp sword glow shot towards Chen Gui's head. It was obvious that he intended to kill the latter. Boom! However, zither music suddenly appeared when this sword glow was still 100 feet from Chen Gui. At the same time, a crimson sonic wave rushed over from the distance and blocked the sword glow. Oh! Yuan Cang's eyes became cold when he saw this sudden hindrance. He shifted his gaze, only to see a crimson glow rising from a short distance away. A young lady holding a crimson zither was icily meeting his gaze. 2 Yuan Gate spirit generals had already collapsed weakly on the ground below. Clearly, their combined force had been defeated by Ying Huan Huan, who was holding the heavenly phoenix zither. Having advanced to the 9 Yuan Nirvana stage, Ying Huan Huan was clearly far more powerful than before. Pure Yuan treasure her. Yuan Cang glanced at the heavenly phoenix zither in Ying Huan Huan's hands. Soon after, he sneered, "Do you think that you can fight with me by relying on that item?" Ying Huan Huan rose into the sky. She gazed at the seriously injured Chen Gui, and clenched her pearly white teeth. An icy blue luster flashed deep within her large eyes. Finally, she sat down in the sky. From the looks of it, she intended to stop Yuan Cang. Ha ha, does the Dao sect really has no one else? Even a little girl has to step up. Yuan Cang involuntarily shook his head and ridiculed when he saw this scene. There's also myself. Yuan Cang's voice had just sounded when an icy cold shout suddenly rang out. Soon after, everyone watched a young lady in black with a black sickle in her hands rush over. After which, she appeared beside Ying Huan Huan. That slender figure was Qing Tan, who had also defeated the other two spirit generals. The two ladies might be young, but the battle achievements that they had obtained were quite extraordinary. Another pure Yuan treasure. Yuan Cang's eyes were slightly icy as he looked at Qing Tan. His pupils shrunk slightly as they swept over the black sickle in her hand. Across the entire area, countless gazes watched this scene in astonishment. They clearly did not expect that the ones who had stepped forward to stop Yuan Cang would actually be these two beautiful young ladies. The two ladies who appeared in the sky clearly caused the bloody atmosphere that permeated the area to still for a moment. After being stunned for a while, rich anxiety surfaced in the eyes of many Dao sect disciples. Why has little senior sister Huan Huan stepped forward? How will they be able to stop Yuan Cang? The conversations between some Dao sect disciples were filled with anxiety. Ying Huan Huan was extremely well liked amongst the Dao sect disciples. Everyone loved this lively and cute girl. As such, fury suddenly surged out from within the hearts of many people when they saw that she had actually stepped forward to face Yuan Cang. However, this fury was not directed at Ying Huan Huan. Instead, it was directed at the overbearing Yuan Gate. Damn it! Qing Yi forced back a Yuan Gate spirit general with a palm. Soon after, his face turned ashen as he watched the scene in the sky, as he clenched his fist so tightly that it gave off cracking noises. To think that he had to allow a girl to handle the situation at this moment. This was sufficient to damage his pride. Humph, you pay more attention to your own situation at this time. That Yuan Gate spirit general laughed coldly. His body rushed over and a sharp palm wind covered Qing Yi. This father of yours will kill you. Qing Yi's eyes were abnormally red. His usual elegance had been completely tossed aside by him at this moment. Majestic Yuan power surged as he crazily charged at the Yuan Gate spirit general. His attack had suddenly become extremely desperate. It was a completely ferocious fighting style that risked one's life to take the life of another. This had forced the Yuan Gate spirit general to become rather hard-pressed for a time. Scenes similar to Qing Yi's outburst were now continuously appearing on this battlefield. Several Dao sect disciples had been provoked by this scene before them. Their eyes turned scarlet as if they had gone mad. Since when had they fallen to the level where a girl was forced to step up and face a strong opponent for them? Was the tragic incident from the last competition going to repeat itself again? Never. Crazy howls resounded within the hearts of many Dao sect disciples. After which, the Yuan Gate disciples were stunned to discover that the originally tiring Dao sect disciples seemed to have suddenly taken some energy pills at this moment. Their eyes were scarlet as they charged. Their attacks now contained an additional desperateness and ferocity compared to before. The sudden explosion of the Dao sect disciples' morale had also caught the Yuan Gate disciples off guard. The situation immediately began to turn slightly out of control. Using this kind of method to increase morale, huh? Ha ha, you are quite good. However, I'm afraid that the price to pay will be too great. The change in the battlefield below had also been sensed by Yuan Cang. Immediately, a sinisterly cold smile surfaced on his face as he looked at Ying Huan Huan and Qing Tan in an indifferent manner. Ying Huan Huan met Yuan Cang's gaze with a chilly look. Soon after, her large eyes glanced below. The deaths and injuries of the Dao sect disciples pierced her heart, as her eyes were tinged with a faint redness. This scene was clearly a little cruel for the young lady who had experienced such a life and death struggle for the first time. I will stop you. The young lady's hand trembled slightly on the zither. Soon after, she lifted her head and stared at Yuan Cang. Her cool voice was filled with frostiness. She was aware that if Yuan Cang was allowed to join the battlefield, their Dao sect would definitely be completely defeated, and their losses would become even more severe. A little girl who does not know her limits. Yuan Cang smiled in a sinister manner as he replied, I do not have the mood to go easy on a lady. Since the both of you dare to appear, you should both accept the consequences. Consequence your head. Qing Tan knitted her brows slightly, while her hands tightly gripped the black sickle. Quickly after, the blade suddenly hacked downwards. The space before it wiggled, and a sharp blade glow that contained a piercing cold aura directly penetrated through the empty space. Finally, it strangely appeared above Yuan Cang's head and slashed downwards. The blade came striking downwards. However, before it could strike Yuan Cang, the latter suddenly took a step back and accurately avoided the blade glow. This black sickle is actually able to attack across space. It is truly rather strange. Yuan Cang dodged the blade glow and glanced at the black sickle in Qing Tan's hand. This attack was indeed quite strange and unpredictable. Unfortunately, the owner who unleashed it was a little weaker. Otherwise, even he would be forced into a somewhat miserable state today. Huan Huan, attack together. A solemn expression flashed over Qing Tan's pretty face when she saw that Yuan Cang had avoided her attack. Understood. Ying Huan Huan lightly nodded her head. She was naturally also aware of how powerful Yuan Cang was. If it was not because they possessed pure Yuan treasures, it was likely that they would not be able to exchange blows with Yuan Cang. Boom! Ying Huan Huan's slender hand gently landed on the heavenly phoenix zither. Immediately, fresh bright red blood seeped out from the center of her palm. It instantly caused the zither to turn blood red, while its crimson light became increasingly brighter. Huan Huan, your hand is really beautiful. From the side, Qing Tan glanced at the slender perfect flawless hand on the zither, before suddenly uttering somewhat envious words. Ying Huan Huan was speechless. Qing Tan actually had the mood to observe her hand at such a moment. Qing Tan laughed charmingly when she saw Ying Huan Huan's appearance. She hurriedly focused herself and soon after, she rushed forward. Majestic terminus Yin Yuan power swept out from her body. I will pester him. You support from afar. Black light shot out from the black sickle the moment Qing Tan's voice faded. Her attack was very strange. She was clearly still some distance from Yuan Cang, but that sharp blade glow seemed to ignore distance and directly enveloped Yuan Cang in a strange manner. Humph. Although Yuan Cang was initially caught off guard by this Qing Tan's unusual attack, he was after all far stronger than the latter. He quickly stabilized his body as an unusually powerful sword aura swept out from the metal sword in his hand. It directly shattered the many attacking blade glows that came flying through space. While Qing Tan was going all out, Ying Huan Huan also lightly inhaled a breath of air. In the next moment, an icy blue color surged deep within those large eyes of hers, as her hand suddenly plucked the zither strings. Immediately, an exceptionally clear phoenix cry reverberated across the entire area. Bang! Bright red light overflowed from the heavenly phoenix zither in all directions. The phoenix light pattern on it also left the zither and soared with the wind. Finally, it turned into 1,000 feet large crimson phoenix in the sky above Ying Huan Huan, as an abnormally astonishing ripple spread apart. The crimson phoenix spread its wings in the sky. With a sudden jerk of its wings, countless crimson light feathers abruptly shot out and fell upon Yuan Cang like a storm. Humph! Yuan Cang watched this scene and coldly snorted. He waved his sleeve and Yuan power whistled out. Finally, it turned into an enormous Yuan power barrier and allowed those light feathers to smash into it. Bang bang bang! A firecracker-like sound erupted on the barrier. Subsequently, many cracks began to appear and spread outwards. That Yuan power barrier was forcefully being broken. The might of a pure Yuan treasure was undoubtedly revealed at this moment. Yuan Cang's eyes narrowed as he watched the barrier break. The metal sword in his hand trembled, and a sharp sword glow violently shot out, shattering the light feathers that had once again shot towards him. Activating a pure Yuan treasure greatly exhausts one's Yuan power. Let me see just how long you little girls, who have not even touched the profound life stage, will be able to endure. Yuan Cang looked at Qing Tan and Ying Huan Huan as he sneered. Ying Huan Huan and Qing Tan's eyes hardened when they heard these words. Yuan Cang was not only powerful, but also extremely experienced. He was clearly aware of the weakness of the two pure Yuan treasure-wielding ladies. The two ladies exchanged a look. Immediately, they nodded as the same thought appeared in their minds. They were unable to continue this kind of fight for long. Hence, they could only take the risk and go all out. Ying Huan Huan's slender fingers gently danced across the zither. Immediately, melodious zither music reverberated across the sky. Following the zither music, the crimson phoenix's glow suddenly intensified. The light on its body seemed to have turned into a circle of light that wrapped around the phoenix. Bang bang! Frightening undulations frantically spread from the bright red light cluster. The surrounding temperature suddenly rose at this moment. Qing Tan's expression also became serious when she saw Ying Huan Huan preparing her killing move. The huge black sickle left her hands. Subsequently, she pressed her hand on the empty air as red essence blood shot out from her fingertips. Finally, it landed on the large sickle. Immediately, the black sickle emitted a red glow, as an extremely formidable ripple stealthily emerged. Qing Tan did not stop after doing this. After hesitating a little, both of her hands suddenly formed a set of mysterious seals. Immediately, black light gushed out from between her brows. In the end, an ancient black symbol slowly flew out from her Niwan palace. The entire place became dark when this ancient black symbol appeared. Monstrous darkness swept out from within it. This is... From a distance away, Yuan Cang looked at the ancient black symbol that had appeared, as his pupils abruptly shrunk. Darkness ancestral symbol? This video will end here.